something quite new in that we were able to move at least 3 different ways by just merely turning our hips and waists. We learned how to brush our knee. We said that this is a way of centering our power or our energy, just the way we held our ball. But when we move and we have our hand positions in a correct way, and we can use our hips and waists, it moves for us, and all we have to do is finish by using our core to get to our final movement, final element in our movement. So looking at it this way, okay, we're refreshing our memory. We said that one hand, the left hand in this case, is pointing nearer to our shoulder, whereas the other hand is up higher in a new plane, new level. When we are in a T, we're like this. When we're in an L, we start to multitask. We start to move the top hand to our head. We start to move the bottom hand to the downwards, and we also step out. But in order for the energy to move to complete our brush knee, we need to turn our hips and waists, leave our hands, and only enhance it towards the ending of our movement. Sit back, sit down, pivot, multitasking. Here we go. Head, down, heel, turn hips and waists, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, setting up for a brush knee, all together. Head, down, heel, turn the hips and waists, brush your knee. Finish it off by putting that left hand further away from your hip and the right hand towards the center of your body, as if you are going to catch a ball coming at you. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher on a T, creating L and a spiral all the way around. Sit back, sit down, pivot, twist step, T stance, glancing at that back or higher hand, multitasking, moving the hips and waists to turn you to brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher on a T, all together. Head, down, heel, turn hips and waists, brush your knee. Sit back, sit down. This time we're going to do it one more time, but I want you to make sure that you're in good Tai Chi posture. Heel, head, down, turn, and when you finish, you should be straight up. Remember that pointing finger? Can you imagine it being your spine? And ask yourself, are you tilting or are you tipping? Sit back. You should not. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher, all together. Head, down, heel, turn, brush knee, straight up. Sit back, sit down, pivot, parallel higher, all together. Head, down, heel, turn hips and waists, brush your knee. Last one, sit back, sit down, pivot, spiral to your shoulder, spiral down all together as you brush your knee. Sit back, sit down, hold your ball on a T stance. Okay, so from what I can see and what I could feel, everybody's gotten the movement, but that's not to say that that's all. We all need some refinement of the movement. Okay, what I try to alert you to is that oftentimes a beginner student or even a matured student, they will follow their hand. Right now you can see that my Tai Chi position is out of whack. It's tilting forward, trying to get me to fall forward. What should I do? I need to sit back a little bit more, but not sit back like this, right? Because then I'll fall backwards. So this is my best position. So my ball is here, I'm centered. I'm on a T. I have energy to expend because my knee is not straight up, but it's flexed down, allowing hardly any weight on the opposite foot. The energy is stored in the sole of my foot. I come out on an L. My energy is still there. I grow, I generate it all the way through my waist, shoulders, chest and shoulders to the tips of my finger. So how do you do that? Is there a button that we press? It's thinking it through and making your core work for you. Okay? So you say, you know, I really get it and it's working quite well, but when I multitask, there's something a little goofy about it. Well, how can we fix that goofiness? It's easy. All you need to do is remember that she said one hand is higher, one hand is to the shoulder. And you leave your hand there and you let your mind work through that energy. There was very little, if not any, movement of my hand right here. Everything is attached to my core. The only thing that I may say that I used without my energy, but I used my core, is the final brushing of the knee. But if I did it a little faster, you would be able to see that when I swirled my hips, my hands went for the ride. It went for the ride. It went for the ride, right? I didn't force the movement. I didn't do anything in between. All I did was set up my hand and think through what I needed to do. So can you see that brush knee, although it involves many different things all together, that if it were set up correctly and you thought through the motion, you would be there in no time, in a split second. So let's do it a little bit. Start in slow, pick up the pace and see if that validates what you just heard, okay? We're on a T-stance, root it down because we need to store that energy. Left hand closer to your shoulder because we want to do this. What do we want to do? We want to do this, right? We want to do this. What do we want to do? We want to do this. But we also want to do this. What do we want to do? This, this, and this, right? This, and this. But the magical area comes when, not when you do this, this, and this, but when you turn your hips and waist and let your hands go for the ride. Remember what I said. Sit back, sit down, twist step, set it up correctly. 3 things happen. Bring it to the head, set it down, put your heel out. Magic begins when you turn your hips and waist. Sit back, twist, set it up. 3 things happen, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic of the hips and waist begin. Sit back, sit down, pivot. I'm going to pick up the pace all together. turn hips and waist. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, turn hips and waist. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly, multitask, magic begins. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up, magic. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up, magic. Okay, good. So, catching on, I can see that things look a little smoother. Okay? To make the point even more clear or clearer, I'm going to put your hands in another a goofy position, but I want to make that reinforce the premise in which I am teaching, to say if your hips and waist did not move, your hands would not get there, okay? So I'm trying to think in my mind, what's the best way? So I'm going to ask you to put one hand out here and one hand out here, okay? So it's something like this. It doesn't have to be exactly, but it's not brush knee, okay? And we're on a T stance, okay? And we're not going to worry about our hands. We're going to step out, turn our hips and waist, and there it is. Sit back, sit down, pivot, switch the hand position, doesn't have to be exact. T stance, L stance, turn the hips and waist. So do you understand that we are not leading our Tai Chi brush knee motions or any motion with our hand? The hand is insignificant. It goes for the ride. One more time. Out, multitask, magic. Okay? Now go back to brush knee, and let's see if we can cinch that down. T stance, multi, turn hips and waist. There you have it. Sit back, sit down, pivot, set it up correctly. Multi, turn hips and waist. There you have it. Sit back, sit down, pivot. One more set. Set it up. Multi, turn hips and waist. You've gotten it. Sit back, sit down, pivot. Set it up correctly. Multi, turn hips and waist. You have it. Sit back, sit down. Hold your ball on a T stance. Okay, just a raise of hands. How many feel that they have a better grip on it? Raise of hands. Okay, so something's happening. You're understanding what you hear. You're watching what is demonstrated, and you're trying to apply it, okay? And Ken's showing me that everything that we do should be core related. We don't want to do any kind of exercise if our core is not involved. It's useless, right? You want that strong central part of your system, as strong as it can be. It can work for you, and it can keep you in better balance. And that's what we're afraid of doing, is falling. So what it is balancing, keeping that core strong. Okay? And Tai Chi, being a discipline, will help you in many ways. But it will counter us if we use our hands and go with the fall, right? Who wants to practice that kind of stuff? Yeah? Huh? Maintain Tai Chi posture. So what does it mean to maintain Tai Chi posture? Where's that finger? Where is your spine? Straight up like this. What can we do with the spine? We can surely rotate. We can surely advance. But when we advance, we have to take that step. We cannot hit and take that fall, okay? So to maintain better balance, I don't worry about where my spine is once I establish Tai Chi posture, which could be a way of life, in that I don't wait for Tai Chi class to set my spine up in the right way. And I'm not overemphasizing that straight spine by straightening it up like this. That's too stiff for me. I don't even know which is my substantial step. I have 2 feet weighted, and we know that in Tai Chi, only the foot that has no weight can advance. Why? Have you ever tried to walk with 2 weighted feet? I don't think I've tried, but you are going to have, wobble down and fall. Okay, any questions so far? Okay, so this is lesson number 6, not quite halfway, but we're getting deeper. We're getting more involved. We're learning so much more about our body that if we kind of forget lesson number 1 or 2 or 3, we're not going to get up to the more complicated movements. So we want to be able to set the platform, layer, 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 so that we have a firm foundation, okay? And to me, each of you have gained strength, knowledge, and can probably feel a little stronger. But you look around and you say, how come she can do it? How come he can do it? And, you know, but don't worry about that other person, because we're not them, okay? All right.